an old t-shirt. If you have an old t-shirt that you don't mind cutting up, make sure you have permission to do that. Make sure it's not a special t-shirt. Now there are two types of t-shirts. One has a seam down each side, and I call that a seamed t-shirt. And other t-shirts don't have a seam going down the side. It's smooth all the way around. There's no seam. And I call these tubular because if you look at it from the end, it's like a tube. Either one you can shred into strands that you can use to braid with. What you do is you start off at the very bottom and make a diagonal cut past the bottom edge and then into the t-shirt a little bit, and then pull to shred the t-shirt. Sometimes you'll get a good long line out of a t-shirt, and sometimes it'll just kind of pull off from the side. But if you shred a t-shirt, you can get yourself a good long strand to braid with. This one seems to want to go on and on and on. And if I wanted to do a really long braiding, I can keep it that long. But if I just want to do a braid that's just long enough for, say, a bracelet around my wrist, I want to cut off a piece about a foot long. Now I've gotten to where it's caught on the sleeve here, that seam, and I cut a little bit past that, and I keep on pulling, and it gets caught on that other seam, and now I go ahead and cut that off. So each of these t-shirts I could shred later, but I want to go ahead and pull this off probably up to my shoulder, maybe a little bit less, from my hands down my shoulder. I go ahead and cut, and I want 3 of these. I want them all about the same length. That's okay if they're not quite all exactly the same length. So now I've got 3 that I can use for braiding. The pine straw was naturally attached and the paper we just got to pinch, but for this I want to go ahead and roll this around my finger, make a loop, and then bring those 3 ends into the loop and give them a pull, and that knots the end so that I can start to braid. If you messed up on the loop, just pause the video and go ahead and start it when you're ready to do your braiding. Braiding is one side between the other 2, the other side between the other 2, the other side between the other 2, the other side between the other 2. Stretch these out if you need to. Between the other 2, between the other 2, going back and forth all the way to the end. I'm going to do this a little quicker. I'm going to let the strings hang down because that'll keep them from getting tangled into each other. Between the other 2, between the other 2, between the other 2. If you mess up, just back it up and redo. I give it a little bit of a tug sometimes just to keep my braid tight. Between the other 2, between the other 2, between the other 2, between the other 2, all the way down. Once I get to the end, I want to tie the end together into another knot, like the top knot, to keep them together. So I'm just going from this side between the other 2, now this side between the other 2, now this side between the other 2, and this side between the other 2, all the way down till I get to the end. Once I get to the end, I take and do the same thing I did at the top. I take the whole thing around my finger, or 2 fingers. I make a loop, and I put those ends into the loop. Once I do that, I've got a good knot that'll hold the braid together. If you want to turn it into a bracelet, open up the braid on one end close to the knot, and take the other knot and kind of push it into that braid. And if it's a tight enough braid, it'll hold it together like a bracelet. Now if you're still with me, I'll show you the 4-strand braid. 4-strand braid, I need 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Four-strand braid, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, roll them around your finger or 2 fingers, make a loop, put the ends into the loop, make sure you've got all 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Give them a pull, but don't pull them too tight because we're going to undo that at the end. Now for the 4-strand braid, you want to think of these as 2 sets of 2. 2 over here, 2 over there. Each set you take and cross over to the right. That leaves 2 in the middle. The 2 in the middle cross over to the left. Now you've got 2 over here and 2 over here again. Both sets of 2 cross to the right. To the right and to the right. You have 2 in the middle, they cross to the left. Now you've got 2 sets of 2 again. Both sets cross over to the right. That gives you 2 in the middle. And 2 in the middle cross to the left. Now you have 2 sets of 2 again. And you can see that braid is looking a little different from the 3-strand braid. So the way it goes, I'm going to hang these down over here so they don't get tangled. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. Give them a little bit of a tug. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. Remember to have those 2 sets of 2. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. Every time you get to the 2 sets of 2, to the right, that gives you 2 in the middle. They go to the left. Back to the 2 sets of 2. To the right, gives you 2 in the middle. They go to the left. Cross over to the left. And you continue on to the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. Continue on till you get to the end. When you get to the end, I'll show you how to tie the knot. It's a little different from the 3-strand braid. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. To the right, to the 2 in the middle, to the left. Give them a little bit of a tug, so you've got your 2 and 2. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. To the right, the 2 in the middle, to the left. To the right, the two in the middle to the left. Getting down to the end now, to the right, the two in the middle to the left, to the right, the two in the middle to the left, to the right, two in the middle to the left. Looks like I've got one more go with this, to the right, the two in the middle to the left. Now if you look at the ends, you'll see that these two on this side wrap around this one, so you tie them into a knot. Around and through, and around and through, just to make a knot to hold that all together, just like you would tie your shoe. And you can probably guess you do the same thing with these two. I go over this one, around and through, around and through. Now if you remember, we made that knot at the other end. Pretty thick. If you want to, you can untie the knot now, continue on with your braid, and then knot them just like you did at the other end. Once you unknot that, you'll see that you've got quite a bit more that you can go to the right, the two in the middle to the left, to the right, two in the middle to the left, to the right, two in the middle to the left, to the right, two in the middle to the left, and I'm going to stop there and tie that knot. And then they take these two around this one and tie that knot. Now if that's too challenging for you, that's alright. Work your way up. Try the 30 strand braid first, and then work your way up to the 4 strand braid. You'll see that the 4 strand braid is a flatter, wider braid than the 3 strand braid. Now if you were to want to turn that into a bracelet as well, you could take the knots from one end and kind of find the middle of the other side and just kind of push them into that braid. If you want to keep it just as a braid, that's fine too. Some people enjoy just looking at a braid, but if you wanted to connect it into a bracelet, if it's a little too wide, you could either do a figure 8 and put it back over your hand and make it a double bracelet, double wide, or you can pull the knot that you push through to tighten it up a little bit. Then you'll have this part that you can bring around and push into another part of the braid and make it thick that way. Either way, we'll keep it as a bracelet. Alright, that's braiding, and you can braid just about anything that you have 3 or 4 strands of that's bendable and can go in between one or the other. Practice, practice, don't get frustrated, persevere. You get better the more you do.